Toes. Get the toes. Hello friends, and welcome to Figure Study, where I'm gonna try my best. Today we're taking a look at the monstrous toy that is Transformers, War for Cybertron, Earthrise, I guess Titan class, Scorponok. This thing, I swear. As you can see, I've already got the size comparisons set up because I can't film this the way I normally film figure study videos because it's just so big. So yeah, in case you're wondering, here is how Scorponok's base mode stacks up to a bunch of miscellaneous figures as well as some standard figures that I use for size comparisons. It's very large. And also, just for giggles, you can kind of make out his little Titan Master tiny head there, and there's his regular body. This is a very big toy. I'm gonna bring the camera in, hang on a sec. Surprising probably no one, I have not actually bothered to learn the names of these two figures. I threw out the packaging so I don't have anything to go on, so for the sake of everything, I'm just gonna refer to this little guy as Zerak, and this guy when he's ahead as Lord Zerak. We'll just handle it that way, so yeah, this is, oh boy, this is a thing. So I guess let's get the tiny things out of the way first. So Zerak is a teeny little Titan Master, and he's, you know, more or less typical Titan Master size. He's got some decent molding, just a little bit of paint on his eyes, and it's fine. I really don't care, because this is essentially just going to be the head for Lord Zerak. And that just plugs in like you do with Titans Return style figures, and here he is in all of his mostly deluxe size glory. Actually, I suppose I should probably bring in a deluxe again, just so we can do a height comparison with this guy. That's difficult to balance, but here he is with Skytread, and he's a little bit taller. Just a little bit. Now, admittedly, Lord Zerak does not have a whole lot going on paint-wise in his robot mode. He's got a little bit of purple in the shins, that splash of silver, and a little bit of red for the eyes on the face, and that's pretty much it. The rest of the paint is devoted to the giant Scorponok face and head that he has on his back here. Here you can see it's a lot of nice silver, some nice green for the eyes there, and the red bit here for the visor is actually plastic, so not a lot of paint on this guy, which is fine. For what it is, it's okay. Granted, I'm not big on Zerak or Scorponok in terms of lore stuff, but it kind of does pull off the look. Like, the chest looks pretty good. The colors, I think, work for what I at least understand to be Zerak and Lord Zerak's style. You can, as you can see, attach the little horns on his back here. This I got from watching Wotafa's video, which you can check out up there, because nobody else really covered this, but there's like this little tab on the side of the horns here, and these little slots on the side of the head plate that those can plug into. So you can just have them back there, or you can flip them around if you want to have them like going up over his shoulders. You can keep them plugged into his arms if you want to do that, and that's fine. Also, something that I was wondering about before I knew you could clip these onto his back, you can rotate these around in different positions. So like if you just want to leave these attached rather than worry about like clipping them on back here, you can just rotate them around if you don't want them to be awkwardly sticking down like that. Another thing that I actually kind of like doing is turning these into an impromptu weapon for Lord Zerak. So you can plug this into his fist, and we'll try it this way. Plug this into his fist, and plug this into his fist, and give him kind of like a little claw weapon. And that's not too bad. Gives him a little splash of extra color other than just the white and purple and gray. Well, not white, kind of a tan color. I always appreciate there being options. So, I guess just to get this out of the way, since we're not going to need to look at this guy again, I'm just going to pull Zerak off there because we need him for something else. Just going to transform him into his head mode for future stuff. So, Okay, with all that out of the way, I can start talking about the base proper. So let's pull this back a lot, really far. And here you can get a sense of Scorponok's base mode. And as far as base modes go, this is actually pretty solid. I mean, I do feel like, in fairness, Omega Supreme, even Siege Omega Supreme, because I'm not huge on Siege Omega Supreme's base mode with the raised track, but even Siege Omega Supreme, I do feel like has a bit more of a this actually looks like a base feel to it versus this looks like a robot laying down pretending to be a building. But Scorponok is a decent sort of runner-up in that respect. Like, you can look at this and see, you know, the arms sticking up, the legs splayed out, but I feel like it does enough with the panels flipping out to make ramps and other platforms coming out, and the big ramp in the middle, the potential platforms and gaps in the chest, as well as the big kind of pylons sticking up on the sides. I feel like it's passable. It's nothing spectacular, but it is passable. Now, I do have a little bit of a fan mode thing going on right up here. Let's move in closer. Here, I left this bit open and have the scorpion legs kind of splayed out so that this makes kind of like a prison cell, torture pit, sarlacc monster, whatever you want to call it. But the way this is supposed to be, according to the directions, is you just have these little toes folded in, which can still work as like, I don't know, like a metal grinder type thing, like a garbage disposal look. And this folds down, and there you have the proper background look for the base mode. And I mean, I do like that with this, you get that orange and blue detail, and it's a little bit more easy to see, but I also kind of like having the big kind of hole that Autobots can be thrown in for sacrifice, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say about the base mode. It's not terrible. I think it gets the job done, and again, I like the fact that he's got different ramps and stuff going off the sides, and you can kind of see it on the side ramps here that they did actually paint some details along those, in addition to the silvery bits that are exposed when those ramps are pulled down. So they did devote a decent amount of paint and detailing to the base mode. Astrid, it's not time for food yet. Chill out, honey. In case you all were curious, here is Scorponok's base mode with Astrid. She turned 4 a couple of days ago. I guess I should say she and Finley turned 4 a couple of days ago. Yeah, she's more interested in food, because it's almost their dinner time. Anyway, I'm going to attempt to turn this into a scorpion now. As I said, I don't really have a whole lot I can say about this, because it's the base mode. It's cool from like a playset standpoint, but the robot mode and the scorpion mode are where my interests lie, so yeah. But again, they did do a decent amount with like the painting of details on here, and even these bits here, which are in this kind of grayish plastic, they actually painted green to match the legs, and then... Did they paint that? Yeah, they actually painted these bits silver. I appreciate the effort. Anyway, let's make this a scorpion. Just pausing for a second to point out, you do not actually peg these into the sides of the legs here. You actually want to peg them down here. There's a peg here that pegs into a peg hole down here. So these flaps actually go down. Okay, the cats have been fed and my desk now has a giant scorpion on it. It's like, okay, I actually really like Scorponok's transformation for all of his modes. There's something very satisfying about the clunkiness of the joints. I actually find it really surprising how, as overall simplistic as his transformation into a scorpion is, it's not as horrendously obvious as some of the other city former type figures that we've had in terms of some of their forms. If you know what you're looking for, yeah, this definitely has a robot doing a weird pose kind of vibe to it, with like his legs tucked up on the back and stuff like that, but it just kind of works better here. The way everything kind of tucks and spins and folds around, and like some of the panels come down to cover up certain areas, it really sells the giant scorpion shape a lot better than, say, Metroplex's spaceship mode or Fort Max's spaceship mode, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, I really like this. I think the scorpion is great, and I would love to have it displayed in this mode, except it takes up a lot of room. Scorponok's robot mode is very tall, definitely, but he has a much smaller footprint than this. This is big. He's very, very big. If you account for like the space that it takes up with like the claws down to the tail, I gotta say this has gotta be close to like a 2.5 foot, maybe almost 3 foot long footprint. It's kind of absurd. I love it. I absolutely love it, but it is absurd. As I said, I actually really like the Scorpion mode. I think it's very effective. The tail is definitely a little stumpy. It would be nice if it could come up further. Like, bringing it in closer, you can see it's a bit on the stunted side, and it would be nice if it could kind of come out further, but then that would either require a lot more parts, or it would make the tail a lot heavier, and it's currently being held in place by just 2 clips on the underside of the knees here. They're sturdy, as you can see. It's not popping off, it's holding on pretty well. It's not popping out, which is great, and it needs to not do that, but it would be heavier if there was a lot more plastic in that tail, so yeah, I can understand why they made it as short as they did. It would have been nicer if it was a little bit bigger, a little bit more imposing, but functionally I kind of understand. And conversely, you've got these enormous claws. Like, these are gigantic. They're almost as big as my hand. And I don't have tiny hands, so I definitely appreciate that. The thing really that bums me out about the Scorpion are the Scorpion legs. I'm just gonna wheel him forward a little bit, because he does actually have wheels. He can roll a bit. It's not great, but it's functional. It's also a little bit better when it's on like a hard surface and not this cloth that kind of moves around. But the thing that bugs me about the legs is I wish they were a little bit more jointed. I understand that it's kind of a minor thing, and this is not like, you know, oh, don't get this toy because of the Scorpion legs, because that'd be really a silly thing to not get this toy for. But I do kind of wish they could do more, like maybe hinge out a little bit so you could get a little bit more spread, or maybe even if they were on ball joints. Another thing that kind of bugs me is they're not entirely individually jointed. They all can move here, they all can move here, and they all have the little toe bit, which is great. But like I said, it's kind of limited and you can't spread them, and also they're in groups of 2 between these 2 joints. So like, if you move these legs up, you can separate the front 2 legs and the back 2 legs, and you can do this, but they're fused here. This is one piece right in here, so you can't actually pull the front 2 and back 2 legs apart at all. The best you can manage if you want to do something like making it look like the Scorpion's crawling is like, maybe try something like that, which kind of works, but I don't know, it would have been nicer if you had a few more options for like slightly more dynamic bug leg poses, but nitpicking. Now for the Scorpion head, it's passable, I think. I appreciate the fact that it does actually have little eyes there, and the bright orange mandibles work pretty well. I do kind of wish, since you can already kind of manipulate these and pop them off and reposition them, maybe it would have been cool to be able to like peg these in somewhere else to give them a little bit more of a, I don't want to say natural, because this is a big robot scorpion that's like the size of a really big building, but I don't know, I just feel like maybe it would have been nice if you could like peg it somewhere else a little bit. And the front of the face is just kind of a slab. I understand why, but kind of would have been nice if there was a little bit more something there. And then, of course, there is the little cockpit section in the back here, where little Zerak is hanging out, and that's not bad. I kind of almost feel like maybe the intention is to leave the flap up like this, because when you're looking at it from the front, as much as I can look at it from the front right now, this kind of gives the impression of like a viewing window or something like that. And when it's angled up like that, it kind of looks like Zerak could look through the window, even though it's not actually a window. When you bring it down, then there's really nothing there that he'd be seeing through. You could argue that like maybe he's got like little viewing screens or something on the inside, and he's actually seeing through cameras, which fine, but just a thought. Anyway, let me get Zerak out of there, and let's plug him into the scorpion head, because that's where he's going to live. Okay, 2 modes down, 1 to go. Let's turn this guy into a big robot. To specify, a big humanoid robot. And here we have Earthrise Scorponok in his absolutely monstrous bipedal robot mode. And, oh boy, I'm almost out of battery life, so I need to make this quick. So yeah, this thing is enormous. Let me bring in some size comparisons. Here he is with the standard size comparison group from before, and, gotta bring it back even further to show everything. Yeah, he's freaking gigantic. But at the same time, let's bring this in again, he is also freaking cool. I didn't really talk about the colors and all that stuff in the other modes, but yeah, I love the color scheme on this guy. The almost neon green and the darker purple is a great combination. The almost gunmetal-like accents work extremely well. I also like the little hints of orange and blue that you get in a few places. It's a really, really cool color combination, and I love the silhouette of this guy. It's weird, in pictures and in videos, he looked kind of a little bit scrawny in places to me, and also his arms kind of looked a little bit stumpy. I think mostly because his actual hands are up kind of here, so that means he has extremely small forearms, but you know, they're robot scorpion pincers. But it actually works incredibly well in person. I really, really do like this, and really the only thing that I can complain about with regards to the color stuff is going handheld for a moment. I kind of wish that this ring here was either in the more dark gunmetal gray color, like this plastic, or if it was this purple, because having that orange ring around his head just seems a little weird. It just kind of stands out, I don't know. I figure it's easier to take a look at the head by just removing the head, so here we have Scorponok's Enormo head, which is basically just a deluxe Titan's Return figure in a ball. But it does look really good. There's some really nice molding here. The silver on the face is great. That bright red for the visor is also great. It all stands out really nicely. I appreciate the fact that there are these little nubbins on the side of the head there that keep these from rotating too far forward. I do kind of wish there was a way to keep them from rotating back, because it is really easy to bump them and have them kind of get knocked out of alignment, but it's also pretty easy to just push them forward and have them snap back into place. And then you do have the eyes underneath, but unfortunately due to the way all of this hinges, you kind of, like, that's as far out as you can bring the visor, and then it kind of comes up here. But that's cool. I like that. I like the effect they've got going on with the eyes, how it's like 3 separate windows almost, and there's like kind of like a green gradient going around. But I kind of prefer the visor look. sorry to go handheld again so quickly, but I was thinking I should probably mention this before I put the head back on. If for whatever reason you don't like the collar, it actually is just pegged in place. You know, these little pegs here, the peg in there and there, so you can just remove it if you want. But it doesn't look super great from the back when you have his head plugged in, so we're just going to leave that plugged in. Actually, let's just keep it in handheld mode so I can talk about some of the details a little bit easier. I appreciate, again, the kind of color differentials here, the little accents here and there, like the gunmetal and the orange, and the way that these guns add a little bit more going on to the shoulders than just the straight up green, but then even they have a little bit of orange. The torso section looks great, and I love these little kind of exhaust ports that they have on the side here that are also kind of that gunmetal-y color. And there's some nice detail going down the pelvis and legs, all the way down to the toes, and there's not a lot of paint. When you get down here, it kind of, I guess you could say that all the paint on the feet is on the inside for the ramps and stuff that you see in the base mode, but it is still separated nicely because you kind of have this line of gunmetal-y plastic going down, and then the toes are kind of the same color, and you've got some blue accents in there as well, so it all mixes up pretty nicely. He is a very detailed, very imposing robot man that is very large. And then there's also his shield plank, which I think it looks cool. I think it's neat how it seems like it can kind of double as both a shield and a weapon, because it's got these spiky pincers on the end, so you could probably use that to cause some damage. I mean, considering the fact that he's, you know, the size of a friggin' building, he could probably cause damage without the use of a weapon, but it's still neat. I also appreciate the fact that there's storage for it, so if you don't want him to have this attached to his arm, which generally I don't have it attached, you can take it apart, and then these can peg into various parts around him. So for these bits, they peg into the legs. You can see there are 4 pegs on that panel, and there are these 4 peg holes on this piece. So you just line it up, and you want to have kind of the slope facing forward. At least I think that's how you want to have it. And just peg it in, and there you go. Now that bit is on his leg, and because of everything going on, you really can't even tell. It doesn't particularly read like any kind of piece that comes off, so it's just sort of out of detail in a way. As for this pegs onto his back, and you can just use these 2 pegs here, these 2 peg holes here. It's pretty much the exact same storage from Scorpion mode, where it pegs onto what is the underside of the tail, though here it's just his back. You can actually plug it in going this way so that it hides completely from the front, or you can peg it in going up, like so, and kind of adjust these however you want, and it kind of gives him little horns sticking up over his back. So when you turn him around, you can kind of see them sticking up behind him like that, and it adds a little bit to his silhouette. I don't think it's a necessary thing to do, but I like that it's an option. One other thing you can do with this guy, which is kind of neat, is you've got some options with those guns. You can pull them off and plug them in to the various ports on his hands to give him gun hands, handguns, whatever. I wonder, can you also plug them back here? Yes, you can. Huh, that's cool. So it looks like the placement of these pegs and this peg hole actually line up really well with the peg holes and peg there. So you can, in fact, peg the guns into his arm plate thingies. And that's neat. I don't necessarily think I want to do that because while it's kind of a neat idea, the guns look a little bit dinky on his arms because his arms are so huge, but I like that that option's there. Also, when it comes to the angle of the guns, you can kind of play around with it as much as you want. What I prefer to do is angle them so that these barrels line up with this flat angle on his shoulder, because it just kind of matches up pretty nicely. The width for the cannons is about the same as the length, or whatever you want to call it, of that piece. Plus, it covers up the screw hole. So that's kind of what I prefer. But again, I like very much that you have options. But anyway, that is going to do it for Transformers War for Cybertron Earthrise Titan-class Scorponok. His name is almost as long as he is tall. And yeah, I had my reservations about this figure. When I first saw the photos and whatnot, I was kind of like, yeah, that's cool, but I'm not really into Scorponok, so I'm not going to get him. Saw a couple more photos and videos and was like, I'm going to pre-order him. And then after I pre-ordered him, I was kind of on the fence about whether or not I wanted to cancel my pre-order and so on, but I have to say, of the other Titan-class figures that are not combiners, like Metroplex, Fort Max, and Trypticon, none of them completely grabbed me for various reasons. Scorponok, though, he is my first proper City Former Titan-class figure, and I'm assuming if I had all of the other ones, he would be my favorite, because he is spectacular. He kind of took me by surprise. It's not just, oh, he's big, that's neat. He's actually a really fun and neat figure in his own right. Though now I'm wondering, do I dare panel line this? Because that'll probably take months. We'll see. I don't want to say I will because I am a mortal person and I don't know if I have the time and patience for that. But that's enough about what I think. What do you all think of this enormous thing? And I mean enormous. Here he is with Finley. And Finley's bigger than Astrid. He is the size of a small child. Scorponok's pretty big too. But that is going to do it for Scorponok. And that is also going to do it for my opinions on Scorponok. Whatever you all think of this enormous thing, please feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all, and also feel free to tell Finley how handsome he is, because, I mean, look at him. He is a handsome boy. And remember, art is more than meets the eye.